The phrase that's been ringing in my head has been boundaries are an inside job. Um, and this concept that I want to get across is that we tend to blame the outside world for the way people treat us. But it's actually, I'm going to challenge that. Obviously, disclaimer. We all love the disclaimers. There are arseholes in the world, and there are people that are just not going to play ball on any level. And so there is um, self-preservation and just moving away and natural things, um, even aggression. Things like aggression can be necessary sometimes and useful and healthy in the space. So it doesn't mean that every situation is going to be nicey-nicey. There are times for saying the words and laying down the law and saying what you believe and what's acceptable and what's not. Okay, so words can be useful, especially if there is, and there often is, miscommunication. So people haven't made things clear and they don't know where they stand and they don't know what's what. Then, obviously we do have a tendency as humans to assume that what we think and how we feel is known, and then we make assumptions based on that when a lot of the time it's misunderstood. So yes, communication, verbal communication can be useful and it is necessary, but that's not the point. So what I have seen, what I've witnessed a lot recently is this kind of grandstanding, boasting. Um, it can be subtle sometimes, but it's got a little bit of that strong, independent woman kind of flavor to it, or something like that. But it's more this: I'm going to tell you what you can and can't do. And guys do the same thing as well. This is the law that I'm laying down. This is how it's going to be, and you better respect it. And yeah, it's got that's the words, right? But that is not what's going on the inside. And it's what's going on in the inside that makes the difference. Because all of that boasting, all of those words, and all your actions, and this is the more important thing, the energy that's carried, the actions, the movements, the intonation in the voice, it's all there. That is where the real story is. And that is where the communication is. So the words can be saying, respect me, and this is what I won't accept. And everything else can be saying something different. And we're smart. We respect the truth, right? And so truth is in the energy. The truth is in all those more subtle, unspoken things. And that is the real truth. And the real truth comes from the inside. And so a lot of the time, and this is the uncomfortable truth here, is that we don't actually believe it. And that's hard to stomach sometimes, because we might say, oh no, I believe that I'm worth it, and I believe that I can't tolerate that. And then we don't get treated in that way. And we wonder why. Well, it's because the truth is there's at least some part of you that maybe doesn't. Now, this is not all cases, but a lot of cases. There is a piece in there that doesn't actually believe it. There's not congruence, right? There's incongruency. And we know when there's incongruency, we can feel it. And so you can say all the words and still get walked over. It's like when you're training a dog. I'll give you a couple of examples. So when you're training a dog and you're saying all these commands and it's not obeying, and yet another person can give a command and it's respected. Well, the words are the same. So what's going on there? And there's a lot of things potentially going on there, but at some level there is, a knowing on what the individual is willing to accept and what's expected and what they want and what's fair. And that is it's anchored into everything. And the responses, like when something happens, in training a dog, let's say, is a quick adjustment. If the owner says, no, no, that's not going to happen, and quickly readjust, the dog will respect it because they believe that that is a true internal boundary, and they think that's an inappropriate behavior, and they're congruent with it, and the dog falls in line. But it's where there's shakiness, um, and this is not a perfect situation. Obviously, dogs have their own hearts and minds, and we can't control all behaviors, but for the most part, there's a respecting of the energetic imprint which believes in a certain thing, truly believes on the inside, right? And other people just get walked over. The words will say, "No, stay, no, stay," but the dog knows that that's just talk, and it walks over, and there's no consequences, and so it's just obvious in the space, and that's true in a work environment. It's true in a relationship. We know where the boundaries are, um, and if someone truly believes it, it's obvious and it's in everything. And the real power play, the real power play is believing it yourself. We can't actually cheat it, and that's the problem. We are attempting to cheat the system. We want to tell everybody else that this is what our boundaries are, and then we want to believe something else on the inside. A lot of people won't be aware of that, and may swear blue in the face, no, this is what I believe about myself, but it's not true. And so if it continually happens in the environment, then that is suggesting that there is some reformation required on the inside, internally. I've used the example of one of my ex-footy mates who doesn't drink, and I was witnessing a number of people get peer pressured into drinking who didn't want to, and the energy is all the excuses come up, oh, XYZ and defensiveness and oh. So they didn't believe at some level, it was something like they didn't believe that they were okay in that environment to say no, and that was acceptable to them, and that the other people around should accept it. Uh, and so they'll say no. The words say no, but at some level, their arms getting bent, and then eventually they give in, or something similar to that. And I witnessed that happening time after time after time because of the culture. Right, this is a culture, and there is incongruency in the individual somewhere, with that belief that I don't want to drink. And then I saw someone who was congruent, and the response was, there was so much gravity in the response. There was just, it was actually eerie because everyone just stopped in their tracks. No one questioned it. No one, after the no came, I was like, no. There was just a pause, and everyone could feel that congruence. Everybody could feel it. And it was like, whoa, okay, I guess he's not going to do that. But the interesting thing is that he didn't argue. He didn't, put his hands on his hips and get his finger out, wag his finger and say, you can't tell me what. None of that. None of that energy. That is a victimized energy that doesn't believe it. So needs to grandstand, needs to posture, needs to do these weird, weird things to try and control the situation. None of that. So a quiet confidence where just a clean no, just congruent with what he is willing to accept in himself and what's okay in the situation, and just a no, and internally happy. Doesn't need anybody else. Doesn't need anybody else's permission. And that is an interesting part of it as well. That's a really important part. It is like we are when we don't believe something or we're hung up on other people's responses and we're affected by how they react in the situation, that's how we can be manipulated in the situation. We're kind of on some level, we are waiting for them to react and respond. We're kind of hanging off their reaction. And so a power play, a powerful person is not concerned with how another person reacts to their statement or their action on how they're going to live their life. They're content on the inside. It's an internal locus of control. It's contained. So this is it. And if you have a problem with that, it's your problem. But the point I wanted to make is that there's no stamping the feet. There's no finger wagging. There's no hands on hips. There's no attitude. There's no victims, no poor me. There's no whinging and whining. There is no yelling. Um, there is just a clean, like on the inside, in the chest, in the belly, just a clean, neutral no. And it's not like a no. It's just no because it's no. That's it. No, it's very clean. So it's clean and sort of um, normal. It's kind of normal, but there's so much gravity to it. No bending, nothing. It's just this just is. So that is how it feels, I think, or something similar when there is congruence. We kind of know that, is when someone moves and they know who they are and they know what they're willing to accept and not, they don't get fucked with. Usually. It's very, very rare. So we all kind of pick this up. We all know. And so it's we can't cheat it. We try to cheat it. We try to, convince other people and convince ourselves probably that this is what we believe, but we actually don't. So it's a call out to, and it's tough. It's tough to look at, but if we are getting treated in a certain way, I mean, there are certain circumstances, just a caveat here or a bit of a disclaimer. There are situations that are toxic and there are, psychopathic humans and there are situations that are just shit and you can be congruent and somebody else can be a fucking asshole. And, you just need to move away. But even then, I feel like if you are truly happy and truly congruent and, you know what you're willing to accept on the inside, I feel like gravity and the natural organic movements will displace you from those areas fairly quickly. So although there are some circumstances where you need to actually just take action, um, take yourself out of the situation maybe, or other certain actions. Most of the time, it's because of us. And if it's happening in multiple environments, it's us. So rather than blame the external like we always do and, whinge about it to other people, rather than point the finger at the environment, which is not solving the problem, by the way, that's blaming the outside world for an incongruence within ourselves. Go to work uh, feeling what is right for you and what the circumstances is right to the core and what you are willing to accept and not accept. And there's probably some internal work around, upsetting other people and maybe, dealing with being the bad guy or having conflict, because that's what it is. It's an avoidance of conflict a lot of the time. And so it will probably take to reform that a lot of, a teething phase where you do have to step out and be fearful of reactions and learn to not care about the other reactions and learn to have an internal locus of control, learn to have an internal compass. And if you are in congruency and integrity with your own values, that becomes the only thing that matters. And so you're judged by yourself. And in that mode, I think you can start to um, step cleanly and do things that may upset other people and see the reaction of that, see the fallout, see other people respond badly and that be okay, and see other people respond well and that be okay, and have both of those situations not really matter, because as long as you are acting in accordance with your own value system and you know who you are and you know what you've done, and as long as you are happy with that, that is the only thing that matters. And just, I think it is a phase. It is a teething phase. So it is like it always is. It's going to take a little bit of daily practice. And so when these things come up, it's just stepping into those spaces and doing those daily things and confronting those things, not in a victimized way, in a clean way. And again, just you're getting aligned with what is right, and not defending it, not but just letting it letting it go on the inside. So we could talk about different techniques and go deeper there, um, but I think that is a good summary. So rather than pointing at the outside world and stamping your feet and blaming things outside of yourself, a lot of the time the real change comes from turning that finger back around and saying, okay, how can I be more congruent? What do I actually believe? And all right, let's try and feel that and get in tune with that. And then the external should, to some extent, take care of itself.